I'm going to talk to you about answering tough questions of young children. Sometimes a child asks a question, and we can answer it easily. Sometimes we are taken totally by surprise. Sometimes the questions seem to come at the most inopportune moments, but ask they must. Their questions help them learn about themselves, about relationships with others, and about the world in general. They are born curious. It's actually imperative for children to ask questions. They turn to us. We are their source of support and knowledge. They wait for our honest, supportive answers to their concerns about identity, relationships, theology, philosophy, sex, life, death, and everything under the sun, as we all well know. Age 4 in particular is a time when they start serious questioning. Although at earlier ages they point because they don't have much of a vocabulary, and they point and they say, see, see, or they'll say, what, where, who. When my son was 4 years old, he asked me, if there were no people in the world, would there still be God? I asked him, what do you think? He said, I think God got lonesome, so he made people. I was flabbergasted, but it reminded me of a prayer in the Hallel service that says, and the dead can't praise God. One night when my husband went in to kiss our older daughter goodnight, she was 5 years old, he came out laughing, and I said, what now? And she said, oh, Daddy, I'll never get over you. When one of my grandsons was 4, he asked me, does God have a wife? And one day he also said to me, you know it's not fair that Grandpa died before I was born. I wanted to meet him. And I said, and he would have loved to meet you too. When that same grandson was 10 years old, he turned to me suddenly one day and he said, you know I'm a philosopher. My usual stock reply to his many surprising statements was, oh. That gave me a very brief moment to collect my thoughts. I then asked, what is a philosopher? Oh, you know, he said, someone who thinks about the hard questions in life. You know, about the meaning of life and death and God and, all that stuff. Well, he's still thinking about all that stuff. All of us as children ask questions. Think back. What kind of questions did you ask? And of whom? How did they answer you? Were they open, honest, uncomfortable, didn't know what to say? Did they lie? Did they ignore the question? Did they use distraction? Did they say, I don't know? Or did they say, that's a good question. Let's find out. The medieval sage Solomon ibn Gabriel taught that the finest quality of the human being is in asking questions. Don't we Jews do that all the time? It's a good Jewish tradition to answer a question with a question. It's also a wonderful educational device with children to ask them what they think about the questions they just asked. It gives us some insight into what it is that really concerns them. It also stimulates them to think about the issue more broadly. Perhaps some of you heard that old story about the child who asks his mother, where did I come from? And the mother gets all emotionally entangled. Oh my goodness, now's the time to tell him about the sex, the babies, the bees and the birds, and she begins to tell him, and finally, when she's all finished, says, Mom, what I want to know is, was I born in Chicago or in Detroit? Well, no person can be an expert on everything. So it is quite natural to be surprised, even taken aback, or embarrassed when a child in the middle of the grocery store yells out, "Why doesn't my daddy come home anymore?" Or, "Where does my birth mother live? Why did she give me away?" Sometimes a child makes a comment which is a form of questioning. For example, I was once walking with a nursery school group when a little girl next to me said, "My mommy's buying me a new bike because my cousin Susie's getting one, a big one." I replied, "Well, maybe Susie's getting a big bike because she's old enough now to ride one." "No, my mommy's buying me a big bike because Susie has one." Again I replied, "Well, you have to be old enough and big enough to ride a big bike." She thought for a moment and again pursued the same line. When I again said to her, "I think children get big bikes when they're ready and able to ride one, and not because somebody else has one," she thought for a moment, then she said, "Well, maybe I'm big enough to ride a big bike now." In order to respond to comments of children, be they hard or be they easy, what do we as adults need to know? Well, first, of course, we consider the child's age and stage of development, the background, their home life, their religious affiliation, ethnicity, languages spoken at home. We want to think about significant recent occurrences, their previous experiences, current concerns. What is the child really asking? Such as, Susie and her big bite. Was it going to be for competition or because it met a real need? Well, we have to be clear about our own knowledge, our own personal experiences and biases. Do we have a clear understanding of that topic at an adult level? For only then can we adapt an answer to the child's level, if we're clear. We also have to keep in mind that our emotional reactions are not necessarily true of the children, especially about sex, death, war, terrorism, and so on. How open and comfortable are we with the question? Most important of all, it's very important to keep communication open with the child, so the child always feels free and comfortable to talk to you about anything and everything. And always tell the truth, of course at their level. And especially sometimes women will get very skittish if a child says, "How old are you?" "Hey, I'm 40. She's really 70. And the child is asking for information to develop correct ideas about what people look like at certain ages. One of my grandsons said to me when he was about 4.5, "Explain things to me so I can understand." That's a great lesson for all of us. It's okay to say, "I don't know, but we can try to find out." That was an important question. I hope you will always ask questions and keep looking for answers. We can always go to ask a teacher. We can go on the internet. We can go to the librarian. We can go to the encyclopedia, a dictionary, and so on. There is help for finding answers. I read once that Sigmund Freud's mother used to ask him when he came home from school, "Did you ask a good question today?" That is probably one of the most wonderful things we can do for children, to encourage questioning and let them know about resources and that we are always available, that we really listen to them and care about their concerns. To question is to learn. Learning is what human life is. To learn is to change. Education is the process of changing the learner. Learning is the most exciting adventure of all. Parents and grandparents are the child's first and most important teachers. Go on this wonderful, exciting, fun journey with your children and grandchildren. Everyone will be the richer for it. As long as we live, We are questioners, learners.